Good morning and welcome to the virtual Sunday service for the Unitarian Universalist Fellowship of Lake Norman. Our fellowship members follow different paths to find purpose and meaning, but we are united by our belief in the inherent worth and dignity of all beings. We are a liberal and open faith community, and everyone is welcome, regardless of race, sexual orientation, gender, economic status, or ability. We are united by our obligation to express our faith through acts of justice and compassion. My name is Jim Price, and I've been an active member of this congregation since 2019, and I've been a Unitarian since 2012. I'm currently honored and privileged to serve as the Vice President for this fellowship. Our opening words today for lighting our chalice are provided by Janet Parsons, and she calls it a chalice lighting for ingathering. The flame of our chalice this morning is a symbol of the warmth and brightness of our connections. The flame lights our way back together again from our separate summer lives and a pandemic, and it lights our way forward into this new church year of promise and renewal. And our chosen words for lighting our chalice are, we light our flaming chalice to illuminate the world we seek. In our search for truth, may we be just. In our search for justice, may we be loving. And in loving, may we find peace. We have a treat in store today. I hope some of you or many of you participated or enjoyed the service the last time Jane Pope was our speaker. The title today is intriguing, The Racist in the Mirror. A description of first of all, a short biography of the speaker is Jane Pope is retired from a long editing career at the Charlotte Observer. She now keeps busy playing with grandchildren, providing companion for the elderly, and doing freelance editing. She is an excellent speaker. We had the benefit of that a couple of months ago. Her title today is The Racist in the Mirror, and a description of it is, I grew up thinking the South needed to become more like me to get past the scourge of racism. My attitudes were enlightened, not like those I silently judged. Anybody relate? My conscience was clear. It took a shattering event and years of painful reflection and prayer to open my eyes to the truth. Sounds intriguing, doesn't it? I think we're in for a treat. Please help me welcome, a good Unitarian welcome, to our speaker today, Jane Pope.
Good morning, and happy Father's Day to any fathers who are watching this. I was tempted to regale you today with stories about my dad, who was the kindest, strongest, smartest, and most admirable man I've ever known. I'm a little biased. But another topic was pulling at me, and ironically, one that involved the only time my dad ever gave me advice that I later questioned. So I'm glad to be here with you today to share a few thoughts about racism. It's a problem that has plagued our country since its birth. It's a problem that continues to divide us. And I'm speaking not as one of those most affected, most damaged by racism. They have their own stories to tell, but as one of the privileged majority. Genetic testing confirms that I'm about as white as they come. I was born in Georgia, in the Deep South, during a time when segregation was the law. I remember seeing a water fountain marked for coloreds only and asking what that meant. I remember hearing the N-word too, but it was never ever spoken in my house. My parents taught me and my brothers that all human beings deserve respect and equal rights, no matter what the color of their skin. I got the same message at church. As little kids, we sang that Jesus loves the little children. Red and yellow, black and white, they are precious in his sight. And in my teen years, our progressive Southern Baptist church, yes, there was such a beast in suburban Atlanta at the time, would often trade pastors and choirs with a local black church. We learned a lot from one another. And in front of the TV, I was entranced by Martin Luther King's speeches and horrified by clips of dogs and fire hoses being turned on peaceful demonstrators. And I knew, without a doubt, that I was not a racist. About once a year, we drove down to a little town on the Florida-Alabama line to see my grandparents on my mother's side. Those visits gave me my first in-person observation of overt racism. I clearly remember my grandfather and uncle talking at the dinner table about how the local blacks were accumulating guns. Blacks is not the word they used, instead going with a close variation on the N-word that was considered more polite in Southern circles. Anyway, rumor was that each black man had a list of a few white people to kill as soon as the signal was given. This was also my introduction to crazy conspiracy theories. I must have looked as if I was about to speak up because my dad suddenly pulled me out onto the big wraparound porch. "You were about to argue," he said. "Well, yeah, of course." "Listen," he said, "what they're saying is wrong. You know it, and I know it, but it won't do any good to tell them that. It's the way they were brought up. They're wrong, but they're family, and we have to love them anyway. Don't believe what they say, but keep quiet about it." So I did. And for a long time, I thought it was wise advice. After all, I knew I wasn't a racist. Throughout high school and college, I didn't really get to know any people of color. Students were divided into classes based on ability, and there just weren't any blacks in the top tier. It never occurred to me that their color could have any bearing on the placement. In college, few minorities were in my honors classes. It was their choice, I assumed. Surely they were encouraged to take those classes, as I was. My naive idealism, my assumptions about the world, and especially about myself, shattered one night a few years after graduation. I came home late that night to the apartment where I lived alone. Late-night homecomings were normal since my editing job ran until midnight. But on this night, a stranger watched me enter, then smashed the front window and came at me with a knife. Then he raped me. I didn't fall to pieces. In a crisis, I tend to do what needs to be done by putting emotional distance between the situation and my reaction to it. My inner Mr. Spock takes charge. So I went to the police and described what happened, complete with a description of the tall, athletic black man with a foreign accent, possibly Caribbean. A nurse examined me, collected evidence, and gave me an antibiotic shot. I called my parents and boyfriend. I was a survivor. I was a rock. At least I was until a few days later, when I was flipping through TV channels and came across a basketball game. And I started shaking uncontrollably at the sight of all those tall, athletic black men on the court. I wanted to hide. I wanted to lash out. And my reaction disgusted me. How could I generalize like that? How could I see black men and automatically think danger? Isn't that what a racist would think? I'm not a racist, am I? If my attacker were white, would I react that way to all white men? Doubtful. But it was easy, unavoidable even, to fear an entire race of men because of their color. Now, it takes time to get over any sort of physical violation, but I had a strong support group, a strong support system with my family and friends. What bothered me most as time went on was my own continuing reaction to black men. What finally brought me out of it was realizing our common humanity as children of God. It began when I was walking one night and thought to myself how much I enjoyed that solitary activity. Suddenly I flashed back to something my attacker had said, that in his country he loved to walk and see the girls. Great. The memory was unwelcome. I didn't want to have anything in common with this man, but there it was. And once that door cracked open, the similarities came pouring in. It was so much easier to think of him as utterly unlike me, a criminal, a violent man, a different race, the inhuman other. Not like me, nothing like me. But once my eyes were opened, I couldn't go back to that blindness. And as I accepted his humanity, the divine spark in his soul, I could forgive him. I could watch basketball again. I could relate to black friends and coworkers in a new, more honest and healthy way. Looking back with these newly opened eyes, I could also see the taint of racism where I hadn't noticed it before. Those all-white classes, the tracking may or may not have been designed to keep black students at lower levels, but that was the result, with long-lasting consequences. Inequities persist in our schools as well as in higher education, the workplace, and certainly in our criminal justice system. It was there all along, and I opposed it in the abstract. But I had been able to ignore it. That's part of privilege, too. I confess I am still a work in progress. A few years ago, A black coworker accused me of microaggressions. I had to go look up what that meant. But instead of calmly asking him to explain what upset him and why, I became instantly defensive, even crying, tears running down my face at the possibility of being thought a racist. Hadn't I done that hard work already? And then when I read last year about white fragility, I was embarrassed to recognize myself. Now, like all of you, I was born into a culture based on white supremacy. I sincerely believed that I was in it, but not of it. But the world doesn't work that way. We can't help breathing in the toxic poison. I've never agreed with the traditional Christian dogma of original sin, that all humans are born as wretched sinners, lost without the atoning sacrifice of Christ. But it is obvious that all of us, however innocent and blessed at birth, enter a world littered with sharp shards of hate that wound us and cause us to wound others. I can't avoid breathing the toxic fumes of a broken society, despite my good intentions. Bottom line, the privileges I took for granted were denied to my fellow human beings, and I haven't done enough to change that. 2 weeks ago, my brothers, their spouses, and I reunited in Atlanta for our first post-COVID hugs. Mostly we talked and ate and laughed together, but we agreed to spend one morning at the National Museum for Civil and Human Rights. As we entered the exhibit, old televisions showed clips from the past of fiery Southern politicians denouncing civil rights. When Alabama Governor George Wallace cried out, "Segregation now, segregation tomorrow, segregation forever," I cringed. I remembered hearing parts of that speech for the first time in 1963. I remembered the George Wallace bumper stickers on my uncle's truck. I remembered my silence, which kept the family peace, but left evil beliefs unchallenged. I might not have changed anyone's mind, but I could have spoken up. Sometimes it seems that we haven't made much progress since those days. Marchers still cry out for equality and mourn lost lives. But I'm still idealistic enough to believe that with God's help, love will overcome hate. I still believe with Martin Luther King that the arc of the moral universe is long, but it bends toward justice. At one time, I thought that the South just needed to catch up with my enlightened attitude about race. What I found was that I had to root out racism inside myself over and over and over before I could see clearly enough to oppose it in other people and institutions. And one thing I am sure of: silence is no longer an option. Thank you, and bless you on this day and always.
And now for a musical interlude from Mike Alec.
Greetings, everyone. Hope you're all doing well. You should see what a lovely, lovely world this could be. Everyone learn to live together. Seems to me such an easy, easy thing should be. Why can't you and me learn to love one another? All the world over so easy to see. People everywhere just wanna be free. Can't understand, it's so simple to see. People everywhere just wanna be free. There's a man who is down and needs a helping hand. All it takes is you to understand and to pull him through. Seems to me we gotta solve it individually. Hey, I'll do unto you what you do to me. All shouted from the mountains, all out to the sea. People everywhere just wanna be free. Can't understand, it's so simple to see. Peace in the valley, people wanna be free. Yeah, shouted down the mountains, out to the sea. People everywhere just wanna be free. Can't understand, it's so simple to see. People everywhere just wanna be free. Take care, y'all.
Thank you, Jane, for your guidance, experience, and wisdom this morning. We're very grateful for your words today. The last time you spoke, you joined us at 11 for a coffee and conversation, and we certainly hope you will again today because you gave us plenty to think about and to talk about, and we would love to hear you elaborate on some of your comments. So it was just a great presentation, Jane. Thank you for being with us. Thank you for your words. Thank you for your heart. And now for a few announcements. If you're a visitor, welcome. I'm so pleased that you chose to give our virtual service a try. If you like what you've heard so far and are wondering how to stay connected or get involved with our congregation, please reach out to our membership chair, Linda. Her email address can be found on the screen below. For members, we are not passing a basket, but we would appreciate you keeping your pledges current so that when we go back to normal times, we'll be ready to fully serve our fellowship. We encourage members to continue reaching out to others when possible. We know that a lot of groups are beginning to meet now. The movie group is back active, and that is so wonderful. And of course, the Feed NC I want to talk about in a second. So there are a few more announcements. The Heart of the Carolinas UU Animal Ministry will build a fence for chained dogs on June the 19th, beginning at, well, that was, by the time you hear the service, that was yesterday. But I'll go ahead and tell you that we did build a fence on June 19th, beginning at 9 a.m. as in Iron Station. All persons are welcome at dog builds. You don't have to have any skills. We have people who are quite capable and willing and anxious to teach you how to perform our simple tasks. And we always have just a tremendous amount of fun. Nobody has to work too hard. And when we leave there, we go away with a good feeling that we have just made the world a little bit better. We do that one dog at a time. From the board, our fellowship will meet live in July at Cottle Creek Elementary School, and more to follow on August. That's a little bit up in the air. The board voted to establish Feed NC as a staple for our social justice initiatives. Our next opportunity to feed the homeless will be July 8th at Feed NC. Thereafter, we are setting the third Thursday of each month as the UULKN's, our fellowship's allotted time to provide at least 5 worker bees. And just like the dog ministry, this is an opportunity to socialize with some wonderful people, do some good, and walk away with a feeling that we have just demonstrated our Unitarian resolve for social justice and love. What could be more Unitarian than feeding the people? Karen Miller, also from the board, Karen Miller has, for personal reasons, resigned as secretary of the board. We appreciate so much Karen's contributions, talents, and commitment to our fellowship, and we already miss her. The bylaws confirm that the nominating committee will provide candidates, and the board will elect a replacement for Karen. Thank you, Karen, for your service and for being you. We wish you much luck in your house search, and we'll be looking for you in the pews real soon. Meanwhile, our other superhero, Sandy, took the secretarial duties for our June meeting. I once told Sandy that she's so remarkable we should put an S on her shirt for Superwoman. And she replied, "Oh, I'm already on a lot of people's S list." She has a sense of humor, too. At the June board meeting, the board discussed participating in this year's Charlotte Pride Parade. The subject came up because I believe in the past that parade has been in the summer. June is Pride Month, and my recollection was that the parade was August or September. Regardless, I have learned the parade is October 24th, so we do have some time to plan. We discussed perhaps walking and carrying our banner. The entry fee to participate is $100, which I suspect we can come up with, or maybe a congregate would donate. Martin Luther King said, "We're all free, or none of us is free." For too long, the LGBTQ community was not free. We marched to demonstrate the freedom to be yourself. There's little more Unitarian than that. More to follow. And with that, I believe that concludes our service. It's been a very good service. We look forward to the coffee and conversation. Go in peace. Remember the principles. We live them every day, not just when we gather. And I'll extinguish the chalice, but not the flame of connection in our hearts. Namaste.